76% of shoppers say that online shopping is frustrating when it's not personalized. Yet almost no one, at least not myself, have ever experienced one single personalized experience. It's not due to the lack of technology, it's rather the lack of shopper context. So with eComID, we're trying to give every brand shopper context in terms of size preferences, style preferences, and other things that enables this personalization.
You're listening to Inside Commerce, a weekly e-com strategy, technology and CX focused podcast hosted by experienced digital consultants and re-platform specialists James Gedd and Paul Rogers. Get insights into e-com strategy of leading brands, hear from industry thought leaders and leading tech vendors with practical advice to help you improve your online CX. This episode is sponsored by WorldPay, and we're back to tech under the spotlight. And the topic for today is how smarter tech can reduce returns, improve customer satisfaction, and also help reduce fashion's environmental impact. Something which is a hot topic, especially when you see moves like in France and the EU around trying to punish like fast fashion. It's really important that the role that tech plays in that sustainability thing is understood as well. So we've got a brilliant guest today. So we've got Oscar Rundqvist, who's a CEO at eComID, who was previously head of digital CX at H&M Group. So really strong background and understanding the customer experience piece, not just the technology delivery piece. And we're going to get into where eComID sits in the market, what it's doing and how it's helping major fashion brands like Sweden, Tiger of Sweden, Asket, Stronger, J. Lindberg. So good morning, Oscar, and welcome to the podcast.
Good morning. Thank you so much.
Yeah, really looking forward to this because, as I said, I've not worked on a project with eComID, but I've heard people talking about it and very positively. So I'm really keen to understand a bit more about the tech. Before we start asking about eComID specifically, do you want to give people a bit of a flavor for who you are, your background, what you do?
Yep. Sounds good. As you said, I have a background from the industry. I was working at the H&M where I was leading the digital customer experience. So really kind of saw firsthand how huge of a problem, not only for H&M, but for the entire industry, the return situation is and was. And then I think I met with more than 100 companies doing something within returns, realized most of them are quite reactive within kind of returns management, returns handling, and not that many kind of holistic, proactive, preventive solutions. So I got really motivated and started to pitch an idea internally. And then me and my co-founder team managed to started eComID, got an investment from H&M from day one, basically. And then, that's 2 years ago. And now working with around, like you mentioned, 50 brands, mostly Nordic-based, but many with global presence.
Great. And you've got some lovely brands as well. So first question. So can you just explain, I guess, exactly what eComID is and, kind of the problems that you're solving? I think, I've seen the product with a couple of clients from a high level, but actually looking at your website is quite hard to decipher exactly what eComID does. Can you just talk us through, the core product and the problems to solve it?
Yeah. For sure. So in short, stands for e-commerce ID. So we're trying to build a kind of a shopping passport for the internet. So because what I've realized and what we can see is that I think we've had online shopping for like 30 years or something. At least 25 out of these years, we've, as an industry, talked about personalisation. And 76% of shoppers say that online shopping is frustrating when it's not personalised. Yet almost no one, at least not myself, have ever experienced one single personalized experience. So that is one thing. And I think it's not due to the lack of technology. It's rather the lack of shopper context. So with eComID, we're trying to give every brand shopper context in terms of size preferences, style preferences, and other things that enables this personalization. And then the sizing, of course, where 91% of shoppers buy different sizes from different brands. So the sizing complexity has in a way been put on the shoppers, where you as the consumer needs to remember, okay, from this brand, I'm medium. From this brand, I'm large. Here I can maybe wear even extra large. So eComID is a way for brands to create smarter pre-purchase experiences, where sizing, of course, is a big part of it. So we try to kind of build data-driven identity that enables precise pre-purchase guidance, so the right product is bought the first time.
And just a sub question, just for listeners, for a little bit of context, because I think that all sounds great. But what would you say is a good implementation to look at as like an example of maybe how eComID changes the journey, just so that people can get an idea of like what it actually means on like the front end, I guess, just because I just checked the questions and there's not really anything around examples.
I think now we work with, for example, other stories, Peak Performance, Tiger Sweden. So the two kind of most popular eComID modules right now are our size recommendation module, where we help the shopper find the right size and buy that one and not multiple sizes. And also this kind of bracketing alert when the shopper is about to place the same product in the second size, then we nudge them and encourage them to trust our size recommendation instead. And also now an agentic commerce module, where what I see now is that agentic commerce, of course, is on everyone's lips, but 95% of discussions are about agentic commerce elsewhere, outside of brands' own ecosystems. So here we have built a module which brings agentic commerce into the brand's own ecosystem. So basically conversational and contextual search, where the shoppers can also use their eComID and size preferences to have a very, very personalized conversation in terms of navigating and being guided on every brand's own website. So I think those two modules are the ones that we're double clicking on right now.
Great. And I think sorry, James. I was just going to say, just again, for the listeners' benefit, I think Nudie Jeans is a good example of that kind of agentic kind of interface on PDP, where you've got that kind of ability to like chat. Sorry, James, you go now.
I was just going to say, I'm intrigued because you worked at H&M before, which is obviously a huge business. And I'd imagine returns volumes, regardless of percentage, it's going to be a large number. What did you learn from that environment? Or what did you learn about size and fit? Because you said about the tech ecosystem is predominantly geared towards the processing and the management and the post-purchase bit, and when there's a problem, rather than trying to proactively resolve it. Yeah. So what insights, what key knowledge did you get from the work that you did at H&M?
Yeah, no, but what I realized there is that, and no news really to anyone right these days, which is really good because this has been started to be so discussed now. But returns at scale revealed that this is not the brand problem; it's really a systemic flaw in how online retail works. And I think the industry has optimized for conversion, not for kept value, and that trade-off is now economically and environmentally unsustainable. And it's success metric wise, I think it's interesting, since average order value is, of course, a key metric that the industry has been talking about, especially maybe during the pandemic, when all brands had to kind of compensate with 100% lost sales in physical stores, with the top line compensation in their own digital stores. And then average order value even more became like a key success metric. But to me, average order value is a completely useless metric, because if a customer buys a dress and then they add a second size of the same dress, the average order value doubles, but one of these sizes will definitely be returned, and then the brand has to pay between $21 to $46 to pay for that return. So in that case, half that average order value is better than double. So I think the industry rather need to go towards more of a kept value. We're talking about average kept order value, which should be much more of a sustainable metric to optimize for.
I think the even just reporting on that would be really valuable for a lot of brands, actually, because you're right. And I feel like every now and then some of our clients will look into that and then they'll start to see that trend. But yeah, it feels like one of the mainstream reporting tools, maybe we can chat to Dima about it, should report on that, because it's a useful thing to look at.
Yeah.
In your experience, so I think this is a really good question, actually. In your experience, so what's the biggest problem when it comes to size and fit? Is it product, which I guess this varies, but product, data, or how people communicate size and fit on the front end?
Yeah, great question. Of course, really complicated to answer, but I think it's a systems problem, but maybe primarily, if I have to choose, like a guidance problem. Because product variability is fine, like the same brand having varied sizing within different collections, if it's transparent and translated into actionable guidance in the UI. But that's really complicated. And the real issue there is that many brands don't have visibility into their own kind of size inconsistencies. And then you can't communicate what you don't understand. So I think in the end, the communication is the key. But in order to be able to guide and communicate properly, the brands need to be aware of these inconsistencies, which is often a very complicated thing.
Ready to grow your business online? With WorldPay e-commerce, you can deliver fast, secure payments your customers love, backed by global reach and real people-powered support. Scale with confidence and enhance your customers' experience with WorldPay e-commerce.
Yeah, I guess one of the things I'm interested in is what you learned at H&M about how you funnel the sheer volume of feedback you get from customers when things are wrong. You get it through reviews, you get it through customer service, you get it when you're doing like returns and you're capturing reasons. And there can be so many things around fashion brands, not just, oh, this was a bit too small, but the shape, the style, a shirt from one brand can fit slightly differently to another one, even though the sizing is right. And you get all these oddities. And what were some of the key themes that you pulled out from that, which help you then advise other retailers?
One learning was that this truly is an industry-wide challenge. It's not a kind of one brand's problem. It truly is an industry-wide challenge. But also when it comes to size guidance, the best signals is really kind of post-purchase behavior, what was kept versus returned. And return reasons specifically, as I mentioned, I think that data is often quite biased or inaccurate, which can poison models if overweighted. It's quite often that shoppers kind of just select a return reason option just because they just want to return it. They don't care. And in an LLM and AI era, it's a fine balance to feed your models with these signals if you're not 100% sure the data is structured correctly or if it's actually correct data. So one thing I've seen is that when brands are starting to shuffle the return reasons, the distribution stays the same, even though you change the reasons order. So even though you have too big or too small on top, that answer will always have the same kind of distribution. So we are really careful right now to feed our model with that kind of data before we know it's 100% accurate. And I think the future is behavioral reinforcement learning, not like checkbox based feedback. That's one learning.
Yeah, I think that's interesting because one of the problems I've seen in the past when people have been capturing reason codes, and this is whether it's on online forums or wherever they're doing it, is there is a tendency among some customers to just select the first thing because they just want to get it done. They want frictionless experiences. I'll tick the first one and send it back. It doesn't matter.
Exactly.
Yeah, it is a challenge to get that data accurate and know that it's reliable.
Yeah, and currently shoppers get and have no incentive to give a more qualitative return reason feedback. But that's one thing I think as well. It would be cool to see how brands could start to kind of share incentives with shoppers to kind of give us a bit more of a qualitative return reason here. And then you will get a discount, 5% discount or credit or something for your next purchase. Because it's, even though you get the reason, okay, I returned this because it was too big. What does that mean? Was it too big over the shoulders or waist? Like what is too big? How to learn from that? So I think getting more qualitative feedback that you can act on will also be a key focus going forward.
Yeah, that's a really good point actually, because very rarely does that happen. It's a standardized form. The one thing I have seen people do to test, to basically try and measure whether or not people are just ticking something for the sake of it, is changing the order of the answers so that if people are continuously ticking the first one, you can just tell it. They're not picking it on merit. They're picking just to tick something and go, which then leads on to people then trying to work out actually how do we encourage people to give us accurate and reliable data?
Exactly.
So I think next question. So James and I will have both had clients that have tried lots of third parties around kind of size and fit prediction. And yeah, I've had various clients that have kind of agreed to do POCs and maybe found that one, the business case isn't as solid as the vendor suggests, and two, the recommendations aren't as accurate as the vendor suggests. Why is it that so many people struggle in this area?
I think one reason I've really seen, that's also something I realized back at H&M when I compared all of the existing kind of vendors within the size recommendation area, is that most tools operate as isolated widgets on the PDP. So basically standalone features on the PDP, and they're quite reactive and not foundational, so to say. So they also rely heavily on noisy inputs, like what you talked about, like return reasons, which often are unreliable. And without this continuous behavioral learning across sessions and brands, models, these models are quite, not that effective. So how our approach is a bit different. Instead of having this as a standalone feature, we try to embed size intelligence across the full pre-purchase journey, across search, listings, recommendations. So it's not just one click on the PDP, because I think it needs to be more integrated. So you get the usage up and then get more shoppers to actually trust these recommendations.
So can you go into a bit more detail on that, actually, because I'm intrigued by that. So you say embedded more across, say, the search. What does that look like to a customer? So I'm on a site, I'm searching. How does your product and the data you're providing fit into that journey?
So, for example, with our agentic commerce module, a lot of people trying different angles here. A lot of, for example, customer service chatbots coming in and trying to be also like a guidance tool, while we're rather coming from the pre-purchase area. So how we can integrate the size finder intelligence within our agentic commerce, conversational search and discovery tool makes every conversation really kind of size aware. So we can say like, hey, James, here is a good hoodie for you, and this one is available in your size. While if Paul comes in, the conversation leads somewhere else for some other products that are available in his sizes. So having this kind of, making more components of the site size aware, so it's unique for every shopper. I think that really is the kind of future where, the entire site becomes size aware.
From your data, you state that about 76% of shoppers exposed to use an eComID platform can reduce their product returns. So, where's that data from? What are the key reasons that are driving it? Because I think when people hear stats, we have so many stats in this industry, there can be a little bit of cynicism initially about how valid is it. So, can you talk us through how you've got to that data and what's driving that impact?
So often we try to keep it simple. So we do A/B testing. So 50% of a brand's traffic are exposed to the eComID modules, and 50% aren't. And then we're basically comparing the averages on a total level. And then we can see that when shoppers trust their eComID recommendation, they have an average of 30% lower return rate than the ones who don't trust the eComID recommendation. So that's why we're really trying to also increase this kind of usage and engagement to not only be a standalone feature on PDP, but rather integrate that intelligence into also the search experience, which to me at least is a really unique approach. I haven't seen it with others. That combination of search and size recommendations is, to me, a new puzzle piece into the brand's kind of tech stack.
Yeah, makes sense. So big question. So with your tool, how do you report on success, and what are the key kind of metrics that I guess you're reporting on in the kind of back end of the tool?
Yeah. So there, back to this new metric that we're trying to kind of establish, I would say our North Star is really average kept order value. So not just conversion, because I think the industry has been a bit led in a wrong direction, where average order value is not really saying much of your operations. I think that has been due to a lot of different things. One thing, maybe this kind of top line compensation from physical stores, but also that actually a lot of other kind of payment providers and others have a commission-based payments model. So for them, it's really good to optimize average order value. But for us, optimizing average kept order value by lowering unnecessary returns and increasing confidence, like confidence purchase, which becomes then better for in both ends for the brands. So this shift is really optimizing from the optimizing transactions to optimizing from transactions to more kind of retained revenue for the brands, and also kept purchase for the shoppers.
So it's interesting how many of like the original core kind of metrics in e-commerce are under scrutiny at the minute. Because I feel like there's so many question marks around conversion rate, with how kind of, you know, traffic mixes have changed and everything else. And I feel like it's the same with, as you say, kind of AOV as consumers have changed and everything else.
And on that, like, I think it's key for the brands to realize how much they're actually paying for the returns, because historically brands have just thought about delivery or maybe delivery back as well. But what the returns actually are costing for the brands are $21 to $46 to handle just one return. And that is because they pay for the manual packaging, delivery out, delivery back, manual inspection. 15% of returns cannot be resold. 50% of returns needs to be discounted. And then it's the alternative cost when they maximize a campaign, sell out. So they get kind of lost sales due to kind of sold out of garments. And then when the returns come in, that campaign is no longer active. So it's then, they miss that kind of full price window, so to say. So it's key, I think, for brands to realize the end-to-end cost, which is really, really hard to understand because it's so many indirect costs, so to say.
Yeah. And I guess, so H&M was quite, I think they were like famously probably the first to look at like the kind of gross margin impact of returns at a customer level. And then they were quite early to starting kind of adapting returns policies and trying to kind of, change how customers were treated based on their returns history. Do you have any intention of kind of going deeper around reporting and how you treat a customer via eComID long term?
Yes. So we've done already a test with the H&M Group and more to come. We call it eComID score. So here, instead of having a one size fits all, where everyone gets the kind of full return fee or everyone gets the free return, we're providing personalized return fees. So depending on the shopper's return rate, you will have a high or low return fee. So it incentivizes the shopper to take ownership and control of your own return rate. So this becomes almost like also a loyalty tool, helping brands to kind of encourage their most loyal and valuable customers with the best policies, while the ones who return as a habit are the ones having the higher return fee, which I think makes so much sense. And that's also how you change your customer behavior, where everyone wins from the better alternative, lowering returning less, so to say.
I think this is a really, this is a real emotive subject for a lot of retailers, because I think people are conceptually against trying to, what they see is punishing people, but it's not. It's flipping the argument and saying this is about rewarding good customers.
Exactly.
And making people realize that there is a cost and an impact to us living in a society where we are obsessed with just buying stuff and returning it without thinking about the impact. And do you want, if customers only care about consumption and just send everything back, do you really want those as long-term customers? Or are they going to make your business model unviable? So I think this is such an important thing. The last couple of years, I think, have made people rethink this through strategically about how this is positioned from a customer experience point of view.
Yep, exactly. And I think just realizing how extremely broken this space around returns is, I think it's a key for everyone realizing that we need to do something about it. Every year, 17 billion kilograms of returns ends up in landfills. Every year, 100 million metric tons of carbon dioxide emissions are caused by returns handling, products being sent back and forth unnecessarily. So that, I think that's almost entire Nordics or something. So realizing that this is like a broken system, everyone needs to change, and we needed to do it together, because it's a systemic, the system is broken. So definitely.
Yeah, it's really hard though, because so many retailers have created an expectation of free returns and this frictionless shopping experience. And then we're basically unpacking years of ingrained learned behavior from consumers. But yeah, I agree with you on that. And it's one of the hardest things I see when people are trying to tackle this now, where they, especially in verticals where you have high returns rates, like in apparel, is how they go about building the policy so that it is a fair usage, but that it is based on data, so it's accurate, it doesn't punish people, but also how they build flexibility into that policy, because sometimes the policy could be implemented wrong, and a good customer could be punished for a isolated behavior. And I think it's understanding how we bring in the tech, but we build a policy that enables people to use that tech and to make sensible decisions.
Yeah, fully agree. And I think this kind of carrots, not sticks policy is really kind of so much more effective to kind of incentivize the right direction rather than punishing high return rates, for example. So I think that's our overall philosophy, like carrots rather than sticks.
So the next question is one that I think is really interesting in this whole area, and I think we could definitely talk for hours about the likelihood of short-term impact and also how this could play out on site versus more kind of agents, place and orders and everything else. But what's your view on agentic commerce, maybe to start with, via the kind of external agents, how that could impact returns and reduce friction for brands here by them having the context of an individual user?
Love this. And as you said, I think we could spend easily another hour on this topic alone. But I think, of course, as being discussed a lot right now, agentic commerce changes a lot, if not everything, in the e-com landscape. And decisions will really kind of change from browsing to delegation. And if we see a future where AI agents will shop on our behalf, precision becomes really kind of mandatory. And very soon, storefronts can and will become dynamically filtered, I think, to only show what statistically fits every shopper, reducing cognitive load and returns simultaneously. So equally how if us three here opens our Instagram feed, our feeds will be completely different depending on who we are. That's also, I think, what we very, very soon will see on e-com sites. So it's, size aware, shopper aware, and adjusted to each occasion, intent, and shopper.
I think one thing that's quite interesting as well, like a bit of a trend that I think there's a big trend in, because I think everyone, it feels like there will be on most sites, like a kind of co-pilot type experience and or like a chat experience that is far broader than it is today. And I feel like that's, something that we're already seeing. On is a really good example, very early example of like an AI experience that I think it's clear they're going to add the catalog into, and there's a few other sites that are doing it. How do you, I think the thing that's going to be really interesting is who owns that part of the site, and then how solutions like eComID and product recommendations and return solutions and whatever else all kind of fit into that. Do you have a view? Because you obviously build it, like if you go onto Nudie and you've got kind of the little widget and you can have a dialogue around kind of size and fit. Do you as a company, do you see yourselves continuing to own that kind of real estate, or do you think it's more likely that you will feed into another third party?
Great question. I think we need to handle both paths. Currently, we are owning that module. We wanted and always want to, brands working with e-commerce should always have access to the latest technology, while we have this agentic commerce module that is built to kind of live on the brand's own websites. But ultimately, our core is not this LLM technology. Of course, it's key to kind of build up the necessary guardrails, and they're making that in a good way. But at the core, all agents will be built on the same technology. So it's really with different, what we'll decide on the intelligence is the shopper context, and that's our core. So we will bring the right shopper context to any kind of on-site agentic commerce experience, and there sometimes it will probably in-house build solutions, sometimes for others, and we will feed that shopper intelligence to any conversational and the contextual search experience on site, where the shopper feels that wherever I can use my eComID, it becomes smarter instantly. That's the our focus.
I think we'll see a lot of shifts in this area, and I think there'll be a few people trying to own that area on site. And see how that plays out. Next question. So virtual try-on is gradually becoming a bit of a commodity, and there's a number of solutions that pretty good that people are using, kind of building on top of now. How do you see that changing the size and fit piece, and do you intend to kind of be a part of that movement?
Yep. But I think it's a really interesting area that has been discussed for a while, like with avatars and everything. So from a style perspective, I would say it's quite powerful. Could be quite cool. Looks really good now with the latest technology. But from a true kind of size and fit accuracy perspective, I would actually say I think it's useless. So it's useless unless product data is standardized and structurally reliable, because you can't simulate precision if the underlying garment data is inconsistent, which is the case. So I think the vendors now selling in virtual try-ons from a returns or size and fit perspective, I'm quite skeptic there. I think brands using virtual try-ons should rather do it from a style perspective and not to optimize returns.
Yeah, here's an interesting area. Oh, sorry, go on, James.
I'm going to say I think that's a good distinction, because I fully agree with that, because it's impossible at the moment, from what I've seen, to get it completely reliable. But how it looks on you and how once it's fitted onto a body versus in a generic visual render, but actually to understand style, how that style might look with you in different lights, or with your hair color, or if you've got a beard or not a beard, with glasses, without, with another item. I think that's really powerful, because you get a really good, strong visual prompt. But as a consumer, I don't yet trust virtual try-ons to be an accurate representation of how it's really going to feel and look when I put it on.
Exactly. And I think until the underlying garment data is consistent and 100% accurate, it will not be possible to make virtual try-on UIs to optimize for fit and the returns situation.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, because from a retailer perspective, and I guess come back to your background as a leading CX side of this, is you want to give people the best possible on-site experience so that they can make informed decisions and buy products that are relevant and good for them. And then at the same time, you want to be protecting yourself commercially by minimizing the risk of returns and ensuring that you're getting good conversion by getting people through the checkout easy. And I think all of these bits together can work well as long as people understand the limitations. That virtual try-on is great and it has a role, and you shouldn't preclude it, but understand what it's doing and what it's not. And the same with sizing and fit and where that plays in. And it's all of these parts. I think what's really interesting about this episode is how you kind of pulled apart the different areas that are drivers of returns, but then the element of process and handling returns effectively so that you minimize the cost write-off to a business. And all of these parts are important together.
Definitely. Fully agree. And I think in terms of, you said the traffic, I think that's also a key thing now, where a lot of vendors trying to kind of change where shoppers are shopping, trying to kind of build new AI native shopping destinations. Like ChatGPT wants to own the transactions. Gemini wants to own the transactions. There are new, like Daydream in the US, they want to own the transactions. If I still would have been on the brand side today, I would focus but mostly on vendors who want to help change how the shopping is happening, not where the shopping is happening. Because I think it's key for brands long term to keep their traffic on their own website to a high extent, because that's how you keep long-term direct customer relationships. And that's been a key focus for eComID from day one, that we want to help brands keep their own traffic, period. We will not be a new shopping destination. We're building a shopping passport to help brands keep their own traffic. And that's clear from our side.
It's really clear that you've built a really solid kind of deep solution in kind of a couple of really specific areas of this quite broad problem. What's the future of eComID, and do you intend to kind of go into other areas of the kind of, returns and kind of fit comms kind of area?
Yeah. Also, I think our long-term vision has been the same from day one. I think you almost hear it in our name, eComID, standing for e-commerce ID. We want to become the internet's shopping passport, like a portable, persistent, privacy-first identity for fit and preference for shoppers to bring to any brand where they shop, to activate smart shopping wherever they go. So in a way, we then want to democratize AI-driven personalization, so every brand get this opportunity, not only the world's biggest ones with the most data. So in 5 years, our goal is to kind of be where, from a size perspective, like size intelligence rather become infrastructure, not a feature as it is today.
Interesting. Yeah, I've really enjoyed hearing a bit more about eComID and where you fit into this whole space. I guess there'll be people listening who might be interested or might have some challenges about it. How does this really work? Will this really do this for my site? If they want to find out more, they want to see it in action, how do they connect with eComID?
So yeah, either LinkedIn, our website. They can also email me quite easily, oscar@ecomid.com. Yeah, wherever anyone prefers.
Excellent. Well, Oscar, thanks so much for joining us today and taking the time to share more about the product and strategy with our audience. And for those of you listening, I hope you found it interesting and you've got the contact details now. If you do want to probe further about how it can be relevant to your brand or to your clients, then do contact Oscar. And thanks for listening as always.
Thanks for having me.
You're listening to the Inside Commerce podcast hosted by experienced consultants James Gerd and Paul Rogers. Inside Commerce is your fast track to digital knowledge, featuring interviews with leading e-commerce retailers, industry thought leaders, and the C-suite of key tech companies to explore the latest in digital strategy, customer experience, and tech. Discover what the latest trends really mean and get practical advice based on experience to help fine-tune your e-com strategy and tech stack. Follow us on LinkedIn and reach out to James or Paul if you'd like to discuss an e-commerce project. We hope you enjoy the latest episode.